the beginning. Thousands and thousands of years ago, the four main river valley civilizations walked this earth. About right after dinosaurs did.
Egypt.
India.
Mesopotamia. China.
Y'all ready for this?
Hi, I'm Chelsea from ancient Egypt. Egypt first appeared in 3500 BC because of early settlers. It grew when new settlers came in, and it collapsed when new leaders took over. Like the other civilizations, Egypt was made up of social classes. The pharaohs and leaders were on top, and the craftsmen and slaves were towards the bottom. In Egypt, the Nile River played a major role in the civilians' lives. Egypt is sometimes called the gift of the Nile because of the Nile's resources, such as a stable food supply, fertile soil for farming, and a source of hygiene. Egyptians also built pyramids where they buried their pharaohs with their most prized possessions because they believed in an afterlife. They also built temples for their gods and goddesses because they believed that that was their home. The temples were made of stone so that they would last forever. Egyptians drew paintings and carvings into the temples. Egyptian scribes used hieroglyphics for writing, and they wrote on paper called papyrus, which was a plant found near the Nile River. Egyptians traded pottery pieces, linen, papyrus, gold vessels, ox, ropes, and dried fish. The population of ancient Egypt was around 1.5 million people. The climate of Egypt was mostly hot and dry because Egypt was mostly made of desert. One major city in Egypt is Cairo. Egypt was a very influential river valley civilization. Some things that were made, such as the clock and the 365-day calendar, are still used today.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I'm from the ancient civilization of India. I live close to the Indus River, and we get many crops from there. The Indus River, it creates very fertile soil. One huge geographic feature is the Indus River. The Indus River is a key aspect in everyone's everyday life in India. The Indus River creates fertile soil. Indus River was not based on farming, but they did use farming for a good food supply. It was a very stable food supply, but one main thing that you might want to know about India is that they were very advanced technologically. The cities had a major sewage system that might be more advanced than those that existed in the 1900s. India's city was very organized, unlike other river valley civilizations that you'll hear about. Mesopotamia, Egypt, and China all did not have the organization as the Indian city did. Now, one key fact you might want to know is the time period that what I'm talking about existed. The Indus River civilization had an increased population from about 2,500 BCE to about 1,500 BCE. Now, there's some mixed opinions, and they're not really sure how the civilization got destroyed and how it ended, but some people do believe that the civilization had a tectonic plate that shifted, which might have caused major flooding. The food source, like I said before, came from farming. So when the flooding occurred, that would have wiped out the whole situation because the food supply would have been unable to get to them. Hindu Dara and Harappa were the first, and they were the main civilizations in India. Now, like many civilizations back then, social classes did exist. In India, social classes, you were born into them and you couldn't change it. So if your father was a priest, you were born into a priest. Now, this was bad in some cases because people were treated unfairly, like in many other civilizations, if they were in a lower class. This might be repeated later in the video, but the social classes were in a pyramid shape, as in the populations of the lower class people were bigger than the higher class people. There were less priests than there were farmers and slaves. Unlike Egypt, China, and Mesopotamia, up until today, we still can't figure out the written language of India. The main crops that they farmed were wheat and barley. Like many other civilizations, river valley civilizations, trading was a key asset. Trading helped them get items that they couldn't get. India was surrounded by the desert and the rivers, so they used the river to trade goods. The river was a huge transportation asset, and the desert protected them from any harm. Some things they traded were jewelry, and also many items they made were made from metal, bronze, copper, and all different things. One thing we do know about India is its history will always remain somewhat of a mystery. In India, we and everyone lived a life of luxury, and that concludes our session.
Gotta get that.
Hi, I'm Andy, and I'm from the ancient Mesopotamian civilization. Civilizations in Mesopotamia developed around 10,000 BC and ended around 500 BC. The civilizations in ancient Mesopotamia fell because Cyrus the Great from the Persian Empire came and took over Mesopotamia. From then on, Mesopotamia was a part of the Persian Empire. In the time that Mesopotamia existed, they developed a written language, had many leaders, and had many dynasties. They also built many things. Ancient Mesopotamia was made up of many different city-states. One city-state named was made up of about, archaeologists believe, 24,000 residents. Common city-states like are Uruk, Nadab, Arsa, and Nippur. Since Mesopotamia didn't have any natural resources, they had to trade with other countries to get the goods that they needed. Some things that Mesopotamia traded was wheat, barley, oils, and textiles. In return, they received timber, wine, precious metals, and stone. Mesopotamia's temperatures ranged from cold to hot. Sometimes temperatures could go up to over 110 degrees. They received moderate rainfall, so therefore they had a wet climate. Mesopotamia is also known as the land between two rivers, and those two rivers that they're located between are the Tigris and Euphrates. They relied on the Tigris and Euphrates for many things. One is fertile soil, two is a stable food supply, and three, trade. People also refer to as the land between the two rivers as the Fertile Crescent, because rivers provide an avid flow of water which could sometimes overflow and make the soil very fertile. Some common empires from Mesopotamia, Akkadian and Babylonian empires. Hammurabi, a leader from the Babylonian Empire, was a very harsh leader. People may agree if he was harsh or not. Hammurabi had a code of 282 laws. His code was set in stone in the center of the city. So if anyone ever got in trouble, they knew that it was there and they could never fight their way. These laws were based on social classes, so most of the time they were completely unfair. Women were treated equally, though, in the Mesopotamian society. Mesopotamia started out with a written code of symbols, but that turned into cuneiform. They used the cuneiform to take down records and other things. Mesopotamian civilization was a precedent for other civilizations to come to follow.
Hi, I'm Alexa and I'm from ancient China. This civilization is very unique because it developed in isolation. The Honghe River provided fertile soil around its banks, making it easy for early Chinese settlers to make many crops and settle there. It also provided seasonal floods, drinking water, and constantly kept soil fertilized. By 1500 BCE, a line of kings called Shang ruled over the Honghe River Valley. The river absorbed a yellow and brown dust. The river was also called the River of Sorrows because when there was overflooding, many people died. By 1700 BCE, people along the Yellow River Valley had created complex, organized cities. From 2500 and 2000 BCE, China thrived. In 2200 BC, the population was 13.55 million people. China began to decline because of class conflict between heavy taxation. The other reason that China began to decline was the contradicting resulting from the four major social classes. The people of ancient China had different beliefs and rituals. And one thing that they believed in was that their ancestors lived in a world of spirits with gods and the ability to grant either good or bad luck by them. The Chinese would set up temples for their ancestors and give offerings to them in order to have good luck for themselves. They also believed in life after life. They also believed that life carried on after death. Like the ancient Egyptians, China also contained items in tombs after they died, such as personal belongings that would help them in the afterlife. China had a system called dynasty, and this was a family-based political system in which each family rules over everyone else. Two major dynasties called the Shang dynasty and the Yu dynasty. The Shang dynasty was made of one king, but also some mediators between kings and peasants. The emperor was only king because of the mandate of heaven, which was the right to get rid of a king if they were not doing their job. The Yu dynasty overthrew the Shang dynasty. This dynasty was the longest-lived dynasty that was known, and they kept many written records. The economy was very stable for such an early civilization at this time. Agriculture, metalworking, and silk manufacturing were all important things that they helped the economy be boost. Religion was a very important part, and many people in China worship gods and all their rituals and spirits. Also, learning and education was such a major part in children's lives, but mostly boy children, because the boys were more likely to go to school and get an education over the girls. A major feature in China was their writing system. They created these ideographic symbols to represent words, and people in China had to learn all of these symbols to understand their language. With social class in China, it was broken up into 4 classes, including craftsmen, merchants, and peasants were the lowest, and the highest was elite people. China was protected from the Great Wall of China that they built, keeping all enemies out and keeping them safe. This wall helped China become a united nation. China had great technology, and its language goes to show this.